What is going on, people? It's Matt from Liquid Loans. In this video, back by popular demand, this guy has got the highest view count of anyone I've ever had on the stream. He's here today to tell us about how to Pulse, the news, the updates, and how the validators are going to work on PulseChain. So, with no further ado, the one, the only, the infamous Mr. WaLLrus. What is going on, buddy? Great to see you.
What's going on, community? You too, brother. Appreciate you having me back around.
Yeah, man. Thanks for making the time to jump back on. You guys are doing the God's work over at How to Pulse. I've been looking at the site and laid out really simply, really clean, all in line with PulseChain. Really, really good stuff. And something that piqued my interest was the page on the validators and the staking. And yeah, really great step-by-step guide. So yeah, how's everything going over there with you guys?
Man, fantastic. We've been really, really busy. We have a lot of irons right now. So we have the validator side. Obviously, we're always sticking up with education. Everyone knows we're very active in all the chats. We're got our hands everywhere. We've been doing a lot with the wallet saver, trying to take care of the people that have been hacked and compromised. That's a full-time job right there by itself. So between that, and then we have our, we're getting NFT on Pulse going, our first project there that we're going to launch native on Pulse, and everything, man. We're everywhere. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's great. Like I said, the site is really easy on the eye. You guys have laid things out step by step. Maybe we can get into the validator stuff a bit right away, actually. And, for people that don't know how it works or how to stake, like, where do they start? Obviously, go to How to Pulse, right?
Right. Yeah, that's what we're here for, right? So, the layout there is very clean, very simple. It's easy to read. We also have an AMA that we did that we can post where it's about an hour long, and we even touch on like the definitions, right? Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest barriers to entry in crypto beyond just the tech side of like handling these wallets, understanding how important words are, these things. It's even if you have a pretty high level of financial literacy, there's a completely different set of words, right? Now it's staking and it's validating and it's bridging and these things. So that was one of the things we've done on these AMAs is touch on a lot of these, just the vocabulary, making sure that slashing, different things like that. That stuff is really important. When people get a good understanding of that base layer, a lot of these things are much simpler moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got friends who are in legacy finance, and actually some of these guys had a bit of Bitcoin before me. But obviously in the last few years, I've really been on the rabbit hole and overtaken them. And, when I tell them about stuff like, hey, you should do this and do that, they're just like, oh, dude, it's too much. I don't know what you're talking about. And it is like learning a new language. So something like How to Pulse, which really takes people kind of by the hand and shows them, okay, step one, step two, how to get involved in PulseChain, and you guys are making content for your YouTube channel as well. I think it's really important. At the moment, on the testnet, how's it going with the validators? Are you keeping an eye on that stuff?
Oh yeah. So there were a couple of issues we had where people would register bad nodes, or they would just register accidentally, and that caused some testnet slowdown. That was something that will be improved on V3. They went in there and actually made sure that the flashing works properly and actually will kick those validators out. That's what, when everyone sees like misdemeanors and felonies, those are slashing penalties for the validators. So they were accounting, but they weren't actually like kicking them out of rotation. So they went in and got that taken care of. That's one of the few things that will be updated. And also with it being testnet, you don't have the same actual like fiscal incentives and risk there. So people just kind of do whatever. So it caused some things to slow it down. Gotcha. All that's been handled now. Now that all 33 validators are there rocking, all that stuff is set. We have great response from all these nodes. There's a really high quality set across them. I was pretty impressed too. That was something that was an early concern was, are we going to be able to have this amount of validators that, at a really, really high level? That's another, point of contention. Sometimes people don't understand like why there's a certain number of validators versus having a large amount more. But the number makes sense. That's where you want to be. And it's operating at a really high level now. And now that we've had 2 test nets come on, we've seen some of the struggles about getting these things to scale up and making sure that you don't have bad validators early. So like when you're trying to onboard, say like validators 5, 6, 7, 8, as you're getting the system actually bootstrapped and running, it's a little bigger issue there than it is later in the game. Like now with, once you have 33, someone slips in there and they're doing a bad job or they're off network, it doesn't really slow anything down. Boom, boom, boom. Goes the next block. If there's an issue, they catch a couple felonies, they get kicked out of the epoch. So it's not much of an issue. So I
It's
think
great. It's
there's
great.
a lot of the data came through, so now they've got a good understanding there, and everything's working fantastic. Our validator's up in the rotation.
Mm.
Everything's going well now. Yeah, everyone should be really, really happy. For the people who don't look at these things, the amount of participation there is massive. So people should be very happy.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think this is the most excitement and volume on a test net, right? I mean, I may be wrong, but
It's huge.
there's hundreds of thousands of wallets. So if somebody wants to, for people that want to stake on a validator, but they want to try it out before mainnet goes live, what's their options? They can get some test pulse and do that, right?
Right. So a couple of cool things about How to Pulse. One, we built our own faucet that runs on V2B, and that faucet will actually be live on mainnet as well. We're going to give away real pulse as well.
Wow.
So the dev team did a good job. They're going to give away 1 pulse to every PLSX sacrifice wallet that did not sacrifice for pulse. So that took away a large portion. Then the ETH airdrop should cover a lot, but it was something that we decided we were going to do early. And even though now we're hoping there's not much of a need for it, but we're going to offer it anyway, just to make sure that, there's just a very, very low barrier to entry. So we'll have our faucet that's live on mainnet so people can get on there and get enough pulse to make their first transaction. Mm-hmm. And then for the staking on the validator, so obviously you can go to the official staking site, go through there, select your validator. If you want to do with How to Pulse, it actually says How to Pulse on the name there, so you know which validator is us. A lot of great guys are doing great jobs on there. Federer, the cells over there at Liquid Loans. A lot of great people from the community have built good validators that are running really well. So, obviously for all the community guys, feel free to spread that stuff around. Throw us a little bit, take care of the LL guys, Federer, Discourse Syndicate, all the great people in the community that do a good job. It's all good. We're all fine. Just keep the community in the top 33. Everybody else is happy. And then How to Pulse, because again, we have a much larger percentage of our audience is very new, which is what we want, right? Like those are the people we're trying to capture. So we actually have a staking platform right there on the site where people can connect. So if they just stumble on, don't know what's going on, they're new, they're learning how to validate, they can do it right there on the website as well.
Amazing, man. Oh, amazing. Like it's obviously, everyone's obviously we all want mainnet as fast as possible, but to see everything working, so seamlessly, it all coming together on testnet 2V B.
And a quick point on the validators too. This is something that I think is really important. And so many people just kind of look at it and treat it. Diamond Hands, it's howtopulse.com. So I think people really should understand how important the validator is. A lot of times people just look at it as like it's a single-sided staking pool that they could just stake with very little risk and they're going to get some yield back.
Yeah.
But I think that they really need to understand what that validator means. So, when people talk about the issues they've had on Ethereum or just, again, even in real life, when it comes to, people thinking that votes don't count, things like that. When you get to validate, you get to actually vote on who runs the network. You actually get to participate in the consensus layer, just the absolute bottom layer of what it means to run a blockchain correctly. And that's, I think it's enjoyable. And I think people understand that there's a little bit of a responsibility there that I think is very powerful. So obviously, if you're a smaller player, it's not going to have the same impact as, Overwatch or C5 or one of these cats, but you get to pick. You still get to say, no, that guy is someone I trust to run. Those are people from the community. I've seen those guys in the chats. I've seen LL build cool stuff. I've seen Federer on streams. I know he's a very intelligent guy. I know Overwatch is the big hitter and our big whale who does all these things. You actually get to have a say in who runs the chain and how consensus works. And people should understand that's a really beautiful concept. So on top of all the improvements that delegated proof of stake makes, I like it just very much from just a human standpoint of you get to participate. You decide who runs the chain. You decide where this consensus layer goes.
Yeah, you get to vote with your economic mass, right? Like a DAO. So you say, right, I want to put my money there, my pulse there. And then obviously if that person's not doing a good job, you can take it away and then delegate with someone else. And yeah, it's true decentralization. And it's beautiful to see that, everything just springing up around this with the community and, just with the content that's being made, what you guys are doing. What other stuff have you got going on at How to Pulse? Any other updates? Or obviously you guys have got your ear pretty close to the floor with it all.
Yeah. So the biggest one that's taken up a lot of our time right now is the wallet saver. So it's one of those things we have to be very careful about how much we disclose at this point. We'll put out some more of the specifics on that after launch, because a lot of the things we're doing is protecting the airdrops. But just as a little bit of a teaser, it's in the millions. that we're protecting already.
Wow.
Of people's dollars that have been hacked, compromised, lost most of their liquid assets. But we're going to be able to, we're pretty confident we'll be able to protect all their sacrifices. Let's see, probably in the six figures of what we've been able to get out of compromised wallets and get to people and get those funds back to them. So it's been a lot. And it's, as always, it's the people you want the least to be stolen from that end up being stolen from. So these are OGs in the community, people that have been here from the beginning, people that have, put belief and put economic energy into the things we believe in. They have the same worldview, and to see those people taking advantage of it is tough. But I'm very, very proud of the team. And again, we'll be able to talk more, and I can really express like some of the great things the team's done. I don't want to take any of their glory. Like, these guys have done a lot to help protect a lot of people in the community, and it wasn't what was best for us, in a selfish sense. We have a project we're looking at releasing that would have been a better place as far as like, a dollar return on our hours of time. But this was something that the team felt was more important, that we had to handle now, that we wanted to have the best solution, the most sorted solution before we went live, to make sure we could protect as many people as possible. So I'm really thankful for those guys.
Oh man, that's amazing. Like, saving people. Obviously, you don't have to reveal any specific cases, but what are the main reasons people are getting hacked? They're giving their seed phrase away? Are they clicking on malicious links? What is it?
Almost always it is exposed seed phrases sitting in software wallets and giving over the seed. That's it. The vast majority. There's a handful of special cases, but 95% are just the 101 things. And this is something that, we didn't have good data for this as a community, and maybe looking back, we should have thought about this a little more. We've already kind of discussed some of the concerns about launch with like dust attacks and these new tokens, and so we've discussed those things a lot in the chats, and the team at House of Post, we've already thought about, we're going to have kind of a cheat sheet of things to just as a reminder for everyone that we're going to put out closer to launch. Don't do this, don't click these things, don't run for dApps. But the ecosystem got complicated for a lot of people. For a huge percentage of our community, we have we're an older community. We have a lot of really sophisticated people, and we have a lot that are just hex centric. Like, they know hex, they know the contract in and out, but that's really the extent of a lot of their crypto experience. And if you come from Bitcoin or a lot of these ICOs, security is never discussed like it is in our community. It's never taken as seriously anywhere like it is with us. So we all the time, I've been in crypto 4 years. What's a hardware wallet?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let's get this right. So when the ecosystem got complicated, we had, Hedron and, Maxi and, some of these things that are just built on top of Hex that are good projects. It's nothing poked at those guys. But then there was confusion. There was more projects, and it opened up people to new attack vectors that they wouldn't have had to mess with. For the most part, there are a lot of people in the Hex community that, you listen to RH, you jump in the chats, you're done. You stake, you set up your ladders. You can hear Kareem's voice in your head telling you 15 years, right? And we're comfortable with those things. And then, when it came to a lot of these other airdrops people were interacting with, Hedron's associated with how your stakes are. And it just opened up complexity to a lot of people who had gotten comfortable staying in their lane. So I think that's part of what's brought all this on. Now there's new projects and there's bridges and, they sacrifice mechanics and, new airdrops. And just as the complexity grew there, looking back, I wish we would have been a little more on top of that. Again, I don't think it's anything we could have seen coming forward, but we've really tried to screen those things. You hear it constantly, people just battering it in the chat. We have the combots listed there. We try to bring it up in almost every AMA to make sure that people are safe, taking care of their funds. The ecosystem got big. There's a lot of projects, a lot of good things doing good things. Like, people are building cool stuff. So we just got to make sure we're interacting with that safely and taking care of each other.
That is, yeah, man, that's amazing, because it's paramount security. And, I'm a Trezor guy. Obviously, you should pick whatever you want to use, Ledger or Trezor. But I mean, if you've got stuff just sitting on exchanges, or you've got your MetaMask, it's just behind the MetaMask with no hardware wallet, it's really worrying, because as we know in crypto, things can go up very fast, and a couple of $100 or a couple of $1,000 can turn into, life-changing wealth. And obviously all these disgusting scammers are going to come out the woodwork and try and get their hands on it. So yeah, I mean, obviously,
So
never have your seed phrase saved on your
we,
computer.
we've been, I've been teasing this a little bit, and Papa B will think this is funny. So, you know, I think sometimes that, you know, a few of the big security guys in the space get seen as a little bit brash, like especially Papa B. He's rough on people sometimes, but it's just because of how important this stuff really is. Like, he doesn't make money jumping in there. He doesn't like being cutthroat. You know, none of us like jumping and harping on these things, and I know it takes up a lot of time, but they're massively important. And so if you don't want to use hardware wallets or, you know, multi-sigs or some of those securities, there is an alternative. You can get hacked, call us, KYC, give up your seed, pay a fee, and then hope you can get it back. That's your alternative. Or you can spend $60, get a Trezor, learn how to use what you're actually operating with, be safe, secure your funds, and make sure that you actually get the chance to enjoy the life-changing wealth that you enjoy. Like, as much as we're happy about what we built, I do not want to talk to anybody about it. We don't like running it. We wish we had no clients. I wish that was something we built that was a flop that wasted everyone's time, but it's not. So guys, take it seriously. Like,
yeah,
we don't want you as a customer that way. I want you to come on the site, learn cool stuff, build cool things, enjoy the bridge, come use LL. That's stuff I want you to do. I don't want you to come to us because of security breaches.
Yeah. I mean, if people stop worrying about the next meme coin that's going to pump and focus on, you know, the thing that really matters, which is securing your funds, right? That's one thing you don't want to be lackadaisical about. You want to be on, okay, you've got multiple copies of your seed phrase, they're hidden in secret places, and you know, you have a Trezor or a ledger, and you know, there's some sort of plan in place that, you know, someone who you trust, you know, a family member or your significant other, instead of just like, oh yeah, I took, you know, I hear people like, oh yeah, I took a screenshot on my phone, it's fine and stuff. And I'm just like, no, never, never, never. So
it's one of those things, like, we just, you know, you just got to beat people over the head with it. You know, it's not always as fun. It's not the sexiest thing to discuss, but man, it's just so paramount. You know, it's paramount to what we're doing. There's a lot that's there. So we want to do everything to keep the community safe. So I was having a discussion with one of the people that was compromised, and it was just kind of a neat thing that I thought was kind of funny. So Hex is a financial asset that's meant to be bought and sold. It's about money. Being a Hexagon is not that. Being a Hexagon is about the community, and those are two different things. So when we discuss Hex, we can talk about it very, you know, black and white. You know, is it in the red? Is it in the black? You know, it's a financial asset. You know, it's meant to be staked. It's meant to be held. It's meant to be sold. It's meant to generate wealth. But being a Hexagon and being part of the community is different, and that's about taking care of each other and doing all the things we do to be selfless and make sure that this is the most educated community that is safe, that does know how these things work, so that we, you know, one, so that our funds are safe, so that we can achieve, you know, again, life-changing wealth, to whatever that means to you, and to be able to, you know, to share that worldview with others. You know, if you don't know how, you know, the more you know about Pulse, the more you know about Hex, or you know, why our bridge is different, the more you can share those things with other communities and expand the worldview, right? You know, when things are difficult and when things are of a higher caliber, it's your burden to make sure that other people understand those things, to understand why what you're doing is better, why what you're doing is more valuable, and get them to engage in better systems. So you should do it to be self-empowered, and you should do it to help onboard and adopt and grow this thing in the world.
100%, man. It's not black and white, like you said. It's nuanced, and yeah, Hex is a financial instrument, but yeah, the Hexagons, and they're all around the world helping each other, providing services to each other. Everything from, you know, the marketing, like the race cars, to the get-togethers, to how to Pulse. I mean, it really is a different community, and you're right. You know, there's bigger responsibility here, and I think everyone who's further down the road than the average Joe, just, you know, discovering Hex or crypto today, has some responsibility to, you know, educate people on hardware wallets, and never click on malicious links, and never believe anyone as a, you know, working for this crypto to help you out, you know, in your DMs and what's not. So amazing what you guys are doing. This guy's asked a quick question. Maybe you can give him the cliff notes. Guys, I still don't know what validators do. Can someone explain?
Sure. So one, you would definitely want to go check out the site to get a little more of a breakdown. But the nutshell on it is, validators handle what you would probably think of as what miners do. So when a block gets full, validators go through, confirm, process those transactions, make sure it's valid, and then there's a rotation, and then the next validator handles the block. So inside of PulseChain, there's 33 validators, and they rotate on who actually processes and manages the blocks, and all of them maintain the consensus to make sure those things are true. So Validators, there's a few different names for them in different systems, but validators basically replace what you would see in miners and proof of work, SHA-256, all those things in Bitcoin and other proof of work systems are replaced by validators who process the blocks with proof of stake, meaning they have stake put up for them, or in our case, a delegated proof of stake, which means that you can actually take your pulse, vote for the validator that you trust to run and keep consensus in the network. So rather than having all these GPUs doing all this mining and burning up electricity, what we do is we trust 33 validators, and there's more waiting in case there's issues. But we point to them, we use our stake, we say, hey, here's a bag. This is our collateral that says we're going to do a good job. We're going to maintain consensus. And it makes for a much, much more efficient system than proof of work, much more efficient both on the chain and also in the waste of what it does when it comes to electricity and resources.
Great explanation, man. And for anyone watching, if you see the URL on the screen, howtopulse/PulseChain validators. So if you go there, it's all laid out step by step, what they do, how you can delegate to them. So yeah, that's obviously the cliff notes, but definitely go over there and read through that. Take 5 minutes to go through that. And obviously the site's full of stuff, which is really good for anyone who's kind of, new and needs stuff to be explained step by step. Obviously, like I said before, you guys have got your ears very close to the ground. You're in probably a lot of the main chats, the dev chats. Obviously, what do you think when PulseChain? Are we looking at 4 more weeks or mid-May?
It's always 4 weeks, right? It's always a safe answer. So, so they are very, very close. There's very, very few things left. One thing that we did want to address that I thought was kind of a big one is I think it's turned a little bit of spitefulness. I know everyone's antsy on wait. The biggest delay with sacrifices isn't from necessarily wrong sacrifice. They do play a part. And I think people are sort of like, well, why wasn't this already done? But I think people need to understand the order of operation on these things, right? So if, let's say that some point in the time, we'll take January, right? In January, let's say they sat here and they took the time it takes to handle these balances. Well, that it was going to take the same length of time. It just takes however many dev hours it takes, right? But then we wouldn't have had V2B up, and we wouldn't have all this extra testing time on V2B and PulseX. So you finish testnets first because all these things can run concurrently, and then you can be working in parallel on these things. So now with the testnet up and running, we talked about that small issue with like validator rotation, flashing mechanics. We, had a chance to do the buy and burn, add the function there, run it in the background. All these things we've done on V2B, those were all running concurrently while still getting these balances corrected. Well, if you had the balances first, then nothing would have been running on testnet. So it's a good order of operations, and this isn't really a delay. It's just finishing the work. But this order of operations makes sense, right? So I don't want people to think that this was a mistake or an accident. Like this is on purpose, right? You want things running. You want to have all this extra time and seasoning to make sure these things are proper and bug checked and all that, because you can check the balances again concurrently. So most of those issues have come from like Tron and Ada. A few of these things have some complicated things about actually processing all that information. And Arch did a good job. So for most part, if people check that last stream, he did a good job going into this. But sometimes like address derivation and getting some of these TWAPs and other chains is really, really tricky. And sometimes again, it's things you think will be hard or easy to solve. And sometimes you think things that are harder or easy. So, again, that would even happen in the beginning, right? We thought that PulseX would take longer. We thought PulseChain would be slower. PulseChain kept adding all these things to the features. PulseX went a little faster. So, we're launching this full state. But the order of operations makes sense. It's not really a delay. It's about getting this. So it's just what was last. It's not a delay. It's just what was last in the lineup. So all those things make sense. They're coming together very, very well. And the majority of issues isn't the couple of goofballs who did dumb stuff. Of course, it's kind of easy to throw rocks at them. Most of it is because Tron, Cardano, a few of these chains are pretty difficult stuff to actually like go through and get like Shelly and non-Shelly addresses and some of these things to make sure that you can verify transactions are missing. Sometimes crypto is just hard, sometimes it's just hard. That's kind of the answer. So, but they're getting very, very close there. The AMM bot is being run privately. It may not capture as much as they would have liked originally, but now it's still going to be, very, very plentiful. We're going to have a very liquid market when it comes to PulseX. There's going to be a lot of pairs there. And I think that they'll just be a little more selective and tighten up the parameters on V3. So that'll be the kind of biggest changes there. But that's it. The consensus, everything about testnet, validators, all that kind of performance is super fantastic. PulseX has worked fantastic. You know, everything's great, guys. Like, it really is. Like, things are spot on. And even the things they're fixing, and something that I put on, I tweeted this the other day, the more I've spent time like learning these things, the more I've really seen how beautiful what some of these guys do. You know, like things with the buy and burn. You know, I didn't even know about some of the protections. So a little insider. And again, for all the guys that are much more technical than me, don't beat me up. I'm trying to make it simple so people can understand. So they actually put some protection to try to stop bots from actually being what run the buy and burn function, because you actually get a payout on that, right? So it has to run what's called an EOA address, which is an externally owned address.
Okay.
So that makes it harder to run from a smart contract like a bot. And it also has some reentry protections where it tries to stop things where it try to like make it call itself and some interesting things. So it's, again, whether or not, I don't even understand that stuff very well. So I don't, you know, most probably won't. It's just interesting to see that these things, like, we just see the button, right? Just click the button, but to see how well these things are coded in the background, and you know, the mechanisms that those guys came up with to make that buy and burn trustless is really, really cool stuff. You know, by going through the LP tokens to fix some of the routing stuff. So it's one of those that the more you look and the more you understand, the more you'll see like how great this stuff is, and how, like, why it took time, and why these devs are as talented as they are, and why it's not Solana, and why it's not BSC, like why it's something special. It's really cool stuff. Yeah,
man, that's great to hear. I mean, it's easy to get angry on Twitter and be like, when PulseChain, but when you explain it, even, and that's like, you know, a kind of like 10,000 foot view, when you explain how much detail is going into it. And like Richard said on his last live stream, it's not just the TWAP, right? It's the historical prices on chain. So they're trying to find historical prices for the TWAP. And of course, lots of people have sacrificed kind of illiquid assets and stuff like that. But it does seem we're getting close, because the devs are refining it every time, right? I mean, nearly every other day there's a new sacrifice checker, right? A new updated sacrifice balance coming out.
And if you look too, a lot of that is really interesting. That's not all the core team either. A lot of very, very savvy people have stepped up. I can't remember that cat's name. The guy who built PulseX Lead, I believe he's in there participating and trying to help with some of those addresses, things like that. A lot of people have stepped up, and again, it's one of those things where you see that community. It's really powerful. I mean, that people just pick up the mantle and start running with it anywhere they can. So it's really goes to show how cool this stuff is.
Yeah, man, you can't beat the Hex and PulseChain community. Like, you know, if you've been in a few other crypto communities or a few other crypto Telegram groups, and then you come over here, it's night and day. And it doesn't surprise me that you and How to Pulse and other people are trying to help people out not getting hacked, because it's just the energy that this community has. We want everyone to win, right? We don't want just like the whales to win or some insiders with the info. It's like, listen, you know, this is a more mature mindset. Let's help everyone out. Let's educate everyone. Let's help everyone with hardware wallets and security. So it's really, really good, man. Another question I was going to ask you is, because obviously the site is like set up and worded for, you know, onboarding people, are you seeing more signs of people coming in from outside the Hex and Pulse community, and others cottoning on about PulseChain and how big it's going to be?
So we have had the site up for probably going on about 6 or 7 months now. And we have over 500,000 hits.
Wow.
And a lot of that is outside traffic. We have ran like things on like airdrop.io and a lot of these sites that aren't targeted at ourselves for that very reason. So we focus the education on the community, but we focus the outreach and a lot of the SEO and things we do to pull in new business and new eyes, new hearts and new minds, things like that. So it's a balancing act there between it's a resource for us, but it's a marketing tool and an onboarding tool for everyone else. And that's why you see, you know, again, that's why you see the way it's laid out. A lot of it's very simple. And then you will see things, you know, like on the blogs where, you know, we're talking about like zero price trading and ratios, and then, you know, more in-depth things on hardware migrations. And so we get into the weeds on a lot of technical stuff. You know, again, we have all our validator, but a lot of stuff's very simple. Just what are we doing? Just how to, right? It's right there in the name, keeping that stuff simple. So it's a really cool balancing act between education for us and onboarding for everybody else.
Yeah, no, it's like a great site. Like I said, I can't speak highly of it enough. Obviously, howtopulse.com, everyone go over there. It's I mean, it's like you said, it's great that you're helping the current community, but also that you're seeing hits from people coming in. And I think I saw someone share something on Twitter about the searches for PulseChain. And obviously, we've seen the education of PulseChain go up, because obviously the amount of wallets that sacrificed for PulseChain and then PulseX there was a huge disparity in the numbers, wasn't there?
Oh, absolutely. And this is something I've talked about a few times too. If you were around for the PulseX stack, as far as like in the Telegram rooms and spending time in there, it was clearly there was a lot less overlap. When we were there for the original Pulse sacrifice, like, it's the Hexagons, right? Like, you see a lot of them. There was, I mean, again, there was a big chunk of new money that came in, or even just, Hexagons that weren't necessarily that involved in the community that kind of came out of the woodwork, similar to myself. I'd been in Hex for a length of time before I'd really became, spend more time, been more prominent, things like that. With PulseX, because again, that the difference of an audience when it comes to, staking and yield farming and these things, like, that was a different audience. And we saw a ton of people that had seen that experience in like Pancake Swap and BSC, where that was a more alluring mesh to those guys. So we saw PulseX bring in a lot on itself. So, I think what we've done, I think, again, like Jesse and a lot of the guys with, on the team there have also tried to like step onto Twitter more often. Most of us don't really care for a lot of the social media platforms, but you go where the people are, right? So, even myself, I for the most part, most of what I do there is still very directed at our community, but I try to do things to try to up that exposure, even though it's not what I personally enjoy as much. So I think you're seeing everyone do their part, right? Whether it's, as efficient as it could be or not, we're doing race cars, we're on social media, we're doing these cool meetups. I've tried to be in person a lot. I've seen what a difference that makes. So we're going to have our NFT platform. I'm sure we'll talk about that here in just a bit. And I've been reaching out and speaking to artists and art galleries about ways to connect with people who are doing these things that are of value to add a revenue source to them, but to get them into crypto and bring them onto Pulse and, see that the barrier to entry is lower. So I think a lot of the community, but especially ourselves, we're attacking it everywhere we can. Anywhere there's low hanging fruit, we're going to grab it. So, whether it's onboarding no coiners, educating people on why WaLLrus stuff's different, reaching out to other communities. We've been doing the Twitter storms, have been very effective. You can kind of get a feel for it in like the Telegram chats and in the Twitter spaces. Some of those guys do a great job on there. Hex is the way, Famous. Some of those guys are a little crazy, but I still like them for the most part. They've done a lot on there. Like, they're in there all the time, and they're doing their new wave thing there. So we're seeing everyone reach out, but you can tell that in those spaces, it seems like a lot of the communities that we've tweeted at and done these storms from seem to be the ones that are responding there. I did that goofy Shiba video that caught a little fire there. One of the first things I had done for the How To Pulse team, and we've had a lot of Shiba people involved. They're going to do some of the stuff with like PulseCon, and so we're seeing the results in a lot of these ways that this stuff is very, very popular. That what we've done is very practical and it's effective, man. And it's easy when you got great products, right? Talking about things like LL and PulseChain and our stuff on our site. It makes it a lot easier on us.
Awesome. Hex Turbo just said on the chat, RH just tweeted that mid-May is still the target for launch date. So looks like things are lining up. Also, WaLLrus, tell me more about the NFT project you were just talking about.
Yes. So this one is something we had to be a little late on because we're very, very busy in the community. We would have liked to have had it out a little quicker. I was doing a lot with PulseX Sacrifice, and so just a lot of things in these last couple of months. But NFT on Pulse is built by our same creative team. Actually, even my WaLLrus, the avatar that most people have seen on there, that was actually built by one of our devs. So like that, it's a very, very artist first, very creator first platform. It's going to be very, very cool. We're really excited about it. We are going to announce sacrifice details probably in the next week.
Cool.
We're hoping to have some creative things that we've done both in how it's structured. We did a lot to make sure that things were safe. We went through a lot of avenues. That's why it took us a little longer. We crossed our T's and dotted our I's on a lot of things in the background to make sure that everything we were doing was going to be above board, that it was going to be profitable at some point, that we could be as transparent and as open, as honest as we could while still keeping to the no expectations and trying to make sure that we don't have regulatory issues, which is a balancing act, as obviously you guys know you did the same things yourself. We went through a lot, and typically you want to be smart or you want to be first, and usually being first is easier, but we weren't first, so now we got to be smart. So, you know, we've looked at some of the mechanics that were a little bit of a struggle for other projects and made sure that, you know, we've addressed those the best we can. But the project's fantastic. It's going to have the lowest fees of any of these things. The reason we targeted that is we have, you know, again, one of our devs created the WaLLrus. Another one of them is a musician and sings. You know, we're all very, very creative types. You know, we like to play poker and fantasy football. And we're big into music and we do art. You know, one of my onboards, he's an artist, and I basically commissioned him for a piece of artwork, and rather than paying him, I put it up for a sacrifice for him. So the artist and making sure these things are taken care of is very, very in front for us, and it resonates all throughout the platform and the things we built. We've seen a few things in other mediums that are very, very popular and that have very successful and that haven't really been attached to the NFT platform. And these things are very similar, right? It's basically just security and listing, right? You know, that's it, right? You know, you post them, you list them, there's a price. So we made the minting process of these things as simple as possible. We made the fees as low as possible. Luckily, PulseChain helps out a lot there as well. And we have a couple of things that we'll announce in like I said, the next week when we have our sacrifice details out as well, where we have an additional revenue stream for NFT holders and NFT creators that, you know, we won't take a dime out of that. It's just for them, and a few new mediums that should really, really help bring audience and eyes onto the site. So as of right now, if you're not really a part of a specific NFT community, or if you're not like looking for something that's been launched, there's not that many reasons. So if you're not really, sort of, I don't say, very into the space, you don't spend a lot of time on these sites, right? Like, like Rarible,
OpenSea.
Right. You don't spend a lot of time there, right? And we've done some things to help try to make that engagement where this is more than just a listing platform, and to really, again, put creators in front and help them get an audience and extra revenue streams that we think will be very beneficial. Just, again, for the participants in that sense. And then where we think it's really beneficial for the space as a whole is NFTs are, we talked about this for a long time. If you ever look at the gas guzzlers list and the top uses of just space inside of Ethereum block, it's NFTs and Uniswap, right? Well, communities like us are Uniswap. So we look at those, and that's a lot of times who we're tweeting at, things we'll think will have a good adoption. People we know are spending a lot on fees. That's who we target on the tweet. And on the other side of that was NFTs. So, having a dev team in-house that's very, again, artistic, it was something near and dear to their hearts. And it made sense as the next thing to take care of for PulseChain. So even if a lot of us OG Hexakin kind of guys, things like that, aren't very NFT, forward, we do like Hedron and HSI stakes. That's something that's very prominent. And also just know that, they're communities who have probably not been exposed to a lot of the sophistication that you'll see in PulseChain and Hexakins. Then, if they're selling NFTs and making money, if you're on PulseChain and, hearing the gospel from us, what's the best store of value? I bet everybody could take a good guess what it is. So the more, and so we've taken a bit of a wholeness approach, and looking at NFTs is going to be something that, burns pulse in the buy and burn, that brings on, new audiences to a strong network. And if you think of Hex as a store of value, if we can bring more value, there's more value to be stored, right? So if we can enrich more users, if we can bring more users in, there's more people who can be on board to pump all the ticker symbols we like. So, again, I think that RH has taken a pretty staunch line against them, because he's trying to pull the pendulum back to the middle, right? So there's becoming more and more uses for these things. They're getting more and more sophisticated. There's royalties. There's, probably not a good idea to buy Jack's first tweet. That didn't seem like a very good buy for anyone who's seen that. But
Richard,
there's more and more good uses.
Richard didn't let that one go, did he?
No, he was not going to miss that.
Yeah.
So, but there are good communities that get overlooked that are doing cool things, and the NFT technology is going to be a big part of this, these next couple of legs up. We saw that consensus, Bitcoin, the beginning of smart contracts with ETH was, a lot of these first waves, the ICOs was kind of a fizzle out. It was very artificial, a lot of celebrity, a lot of partners with Visa and Microsoft and that stuff came pretty quickly. And recently it's been DeFi, and that's what I think a lot of us find to be very near and dear. And it's hardly done with that revolution as well. But I think the next little section of that will be NFTs and the tech around it, whether it's, making things transferable like we see with HSI stakes, whether it's, adding more independent value to these things and ticketing and a lot of the mechanics that can be done with the NFT tech. So it is very, very fair to be critical of a lot of these things, but understand that the tech's great. And so a lot of times I explain that, of the 10,000 ERC20s, most of those suck, but one of them techs, right? So, I take a similar approach in NFTs. Yeah, a lot of those things are, not going to be super valuable. A lot of those will lose value, but there's still a lot of thoughtful experiments there and great uses for the tech that's coming on there. And we want to be open-minded and to bringing those people and that value onto the chain. And again, the more value we create, the more value there is to be stored in Hex and Pulse and PulseX.
Man, I didn't know that you guys were doing that, and that's amazing because we need adoption on the chain. We don't want a chain just full of hexagons and pulsicons rattling around on an empty chain. So, like you said, of course, some people are not going to look favorably on it, but no, we need adoption on the chain. NFTs are big. I don't care where you stand on them, whether you love them, hate them. Obviously, there's more to them than art as well. Like you said, with Hedron and how they're doing those encapsulated stakes and selling them as NFTs. But come on, they're massive all over the world now. Celebrities are getting involved, and not like I agree with their NFT drops or anything like that, but people love them and they're getting murdered over on OpenSea and on Rarible and stuff. So the fact that they're going to get a copy on PulseChain, they need places to interact, and that's amazing, man. That should bring some serious adoption to PulseChain. So yeah, good luck with that. I really look forward to seeing that come into fruition.
We're very excited.
Yeah, man, it sounds dope. Corey the Light asks, how is the NFT project different from Mintra? I guess it's maybe different, like Rarible and OpenSea, two different platforms.
Yeah. So, again, on the UI side, there'll be, a lot of, aesthetic differences, things like that. I don't want to speak too much about their stuff. I don't want to be negative at all. And one, Gerard and those guys, we wish you the absolute best. Build cool stuff, bring a bunch of adoption on. Another one is Pixel Park, the Power City guys. They're good buddies of mine. I'm going to go hang out with them in Vegas. I talk to them almost every day. So I hope that, I know the Power City guys do. I haven't really had much of a chance to reach out to those guys. I hope they view it the same way we do, that it's much more likely that all of us are successful in the beginning or that none of us are. And let's build a lot of value and then we'll fight over, who's got the pie. Right.
Yeah.
So, I hope those guys do a good job, and I hope they keep doing a good job as far as marketing and everything like that. I'm sure it's price positive for both projects. And as far as the differences, so from those guys primarily that I've seen, that I know they're going to do a lot of copying of OpenSea. I haven't seen too much of what they've done with the UI. I think some of the tokenomics will be similar between the projects. So I guess again I can really pretty much talk about ourselves. The biggest thing is that we're doing a lot of this from scratch. We wanted to tweak a lot of the contracts and build something that was very specific to us. And, there's pros and cons to that. It's obviously taken us a lot of time, but we think the end project will be worth the extra time and coding and effort and love that our devs and our team has put together. And the biggest thing I think that we focus on, and I don't want to say this is different from those guys because I'm sure they have a similar mindset, is the few things we've done, because again, there's not that much variation in these things, right? Even some of the smaller boutique NFT listing sites are, for the most part, they're listing sites, right? There's better and worse coding. There's more and less security. There's more appealing fee structures and things like that, but they're very similar. They're shades of gray in a lot of ways. Sometimes those shades can be really far apart, but again, there's still a lot there. We've added, again, we'll release it here in this next week when we talk about our sacrifice details. But a few things we've done that we've seen be very successful in other industries and similar type markets, as far as getting more eyes and more adoption and time spent on the site just viewing. And a few of the things we've done to add extra revenue streams. They're things we've seen be very functional on other media formats like YouTube, on social media, that I haven't seen directly adopted, and I think will make a really big difference for the artists and the creators. And if we can, the more we can do to empower those cats, I think we'll see that market mature faster as well. So I think when we saw, a lot of these ICOs, it was very trash, and then people kind of pushed away. And then I think what we saw after that in a lot of ways was much better projects, more refined, a more mature market. Everyone had kind of dug through all the glitz and glamour and the part, and it was like, okay, where's the code? What are we doing here? Like, what's the use case for this stuff? Like, where's the team? Where's the value behind these things? And I think that the better we can make that marketplace for those creators, and the more we can do to engage, very, very high financially literate people into that space, the more it'll naturally mature itself. And I think that'll help weed away some of the less valuable projects and, things that are going to be very pump dump, that type of mechanic. And really just focus on the creator and that other revenue source, and the things we've done to sort of change it from sort of a listing platform to more of an art gallery in some ways. I think are small changes that make a massive difference at the end. There's something called the Pareto distribution, where at the average, it doesn't take much of a difference, but when you go to the extreme, it scales out very large. And I think the changes we made are similar to that on average, they're not that massive in some ways, but when you look at how the impact is going to be for the participants and the creators, it's massive. It'll be very different.
Oh, that's amazing, man. That's great to hear that you guys are doing that. And like I said, if you care about PulseChain and you care about if you're holding any PLS, whether you want to use NFTs or you have no time for them, doesn't matter. You'll want these sites to do well. You want to bring adoption to Pulse. And of course, the more people that use Pulse, they're going to buy Pulse to interact on the network. There'll be more fees burned. And it's just that upward spiral for adoption. So that's really good to hear, man. I'm really happy about that. And I really hope you guys do well. One last question before I let you go. Obviously, mainnet seems imminent. We're looking at maybe even under 4 weeks now. So what's your number one tip on what people should be doing now to get ready for mainnet?
So the first thing is to know that there's no rush around this thing, right? There's a few trades that we made early on. I promise, take your time with these things. If you're comfortable with the way the ratio trading and these things work, and by the way, every trade's a ratio trade, but it's just easy to be clear with that language. Take your time on these things. If you are going to be someone who's aggressive in that first 24, 72 hours, you better be using that testnet. You better be tested with the bridge. You better go through and make sure these mechanics are sound, that you have a good understanding, that you have a well-rounded approach to what you're looking at, and don't overcommit your bag. Again, I try to say this on almost every stream. If you sacrifice for Pulse or PLSX, you likely have the lowest cost basis for something that has 5-digit X upside. What are the chances that you trade that thing with no dollar value, no charts, right around launch, and you improve that position? Start with that lens. Like I want it to be a little rough and a little brutal, because I want people to be hearing that thing over and over in their head when they're like, oh, maybe I won't click that button. Like maybe it'll slow down. So it's the other one is that I think that a lot of times the shiny thing isn't always the most valuable. So something that goes on in PulseX with the chats, and I brought this up, a lot of times the single-sided staking is kind of like the most engaging thing. There's a little bit of nuance, things we don't know. What could the pools be? The magic on that is the buy and burn and the DAO voting. Like the single-sided staking is the icing, right? If you assume that any of our even most conservative goals for price appreciation are going to come to fruition, single-sided staking is just a little cream on the top. It's not the magic, right? So just, again, and that's why, I bring up, the cost bases we have on these, on the layer 1 and on the DEX coin to make sure that people understand, like, that's where the value is. The value is in the principle of these things and in not blowing your bags trying to get cute. There's a lot of things we can do with LPs. There's a lot of the trading. There's a lot of ARB opportunities. There's a ton of great stuff going on the net, whether it's participating in third-party projects like what we have, but understand what those mechanics mean. Do not be in a rush. Someone who does nothing and just holds is much more likely to work out better than people who rush into 2 or 3 different mechanics that they don't understand. So, again, take your time. More is less, or less is more in a lot of ways with these things. Stay tuned to what myself and How to Pulse do, we're going to put out some cheat sheets when we get close to launch about things to just reminders for like things like dust attacks, where there's going to be a lot of new things. And so the last thing I want to reiterate there too is we saw this with the Hex community when we got extra airdrops and Pulse and PulseX, the complexity went up, and so the ease at which people can be taken advantage of went down. And we want to make sure that we address that this time. So please be safe around launch. Ask and ask again. Something that I was really excited about, and I wish I could remember these cats' name. It's like USMC Vet, something along those lines on Twitter. I can't remember the other cat's name, but there was a concern. There was a little bit of a rumor that there was an issue with the contract for one of these recent drops. They went and verified. We verified with some of our guys and looked over permission, and the community reached out to me. Hey, is this contract okay? And it doesn't mean that I'm the arbiter of truth, but guys, that was a perfect example of taking your time and reaching out. Like, I think the How to Pulse team actually tweeted out that like, hey, scam, because we did have a little bit of a rumor there. So one, sorry to those guys if we barked up the wrong tree. But again, we're just very safety first. Want to make sure everything was secure. And, we wish those guys all the best, but that was a good practice from the community there. I'm glad they took time to go through. And the other is just enjoy it a little bit, guys. Like this is going to be something I know will be stressful, but remember, this is going to be something really powerful. People that have participated in this are going to have a chance to look at these things and be like, oh, I know Matt. I talked to Matt in the chats. Yeah, I remember the WaLLrus guy. Yeah, Jesse, he started LL. Alex is from Hedron. Like all these people at this point are very accessible, and that doesn't happen in a lot of places and in a lot of markets, right? Someone I was speaking to not that long ago has been around the community for a long time, and I brought up that like Roger Veer is someone I really like, and she goes, "Oh, Roger? Yeah, I still email with him sometimes." I was like, "Oh, all right. Well, that's pretty damn cool." And then she was like, yeah, I met Vitalik, but at the time he just worked for Bitcoin Magazine, and said it almost like he was just a guy. And so I guess just one of those things, just truly enjoy the moment a little bit, guys. That's what a lot of these, that fire and crypto and things are about. It's about buying your time back. We've talked about that a lot. Realize that like being a part of, a network of this size and a DEX and this community where there's all these projects spawning out it's once in a lifetime type things, as this space grows and gets more complicated, as people get more and more distant from what, you'll have less exposure to these guys. If these guys are going to get rich and have better things to do, you're going to have to call them on the sat phone on their yacht. Right. So just, enjoy that there's a lot of exposure to a lot of really, really smart people. It's something I personally find very rewarding and gratifying, being able to reach out and talk to so many of the devs on these different projects, guys like yourself. I always appreciate you having me on, and Jesse. So take your time, slow down, make sure everyone's safe with funds. Take this time ahead of launch to research things that you're interested in. And guys, just enjoy the launch, man. It's going to be something so powerful, something so enjoyable to be around in, and not just because of the money, but because of the connections this community has and what they built and what they've supercharged before this thing is even launched. And there's just not a lot of times in the world that you're going to get to talk to people who make world-changing events happen. And all of us are getting a chance to do that right now.
That's amazing advice, man. Like, number one, don't get too cute, because mistakes love a rush decision. And number two, enjoy the moment, because it's rare to be around a community like this, especially we're on the brink of kind of making history, right? With this new, this possible king of proof of stake blockchains, that's going to be coming out very soon. Listen, man, this has been great. I really appreciate your time. And to be honest, you're such a fan favorite that hopefully if you've got some time, you can jump back on, every couple of weeks or once a month at least. It'd be great to get an update on how to Pulse is doing and all the updates there. So we'll stay in contact obviously on Telegram, but where can people find out more about you, and what links should they go to?
Yeah, obviously. So everything I do is how to Pulse. I'm WaLLrus on Twitter. I actually can't remember the rest of the handle, guys. I'm sorry. I'm a bad influencer. And then I'm WaLLrus on Telegram, but there's 2 L's. And there's tons of fake accounts, so please be careful on that stuff if you guys want to reach out. I'm more than happy to help anyone. Thanks for posting that link there. And again, to anyone who's doing anything for adoption, I spoke to some cats who are doing some TikTok videos, and I was like, guys, I absolutely hate TikTok. I'll do anything to help you guys out, because I don't want to go do that work. So if anyone's doing anything for adoption, I try to spend some time with the Twitter Spaces guys, get those guys up to date. Anyone doing content, making videos, making GIFs, if you're doing anything that's price positive for the community, I'll do everything I can to help. I've helped translate things in Arabic. If you have Arabic speakers, I have people that are there to help translate for those guys. Anything anyone needs. If you're doing something positive, myself and the team will be on board. We will help. So you guys put in work wherever it is you feel you have talent and time, and anything we can do to help, we will.
Oh, that's amazing, man. You're a savant of the community, man. I really appreciate you. So thanks so much for coming on, and yeah, come back on soon if you have some time.
Absolutely. I always make time for you guys. Thanks so much for having us, man.
Thank you, WaLLrus.
Be safe, guys.
What a legend, man. WaLLrus, the man, the myth, the legend. I mean, mind blown on all that info, the advice. Obviously, don't get too cute. You know, don't try and rush anything when mainnet goes live, and also enjoy the moment. Also, head over to howtopulse.com where you can find out lots of info about PulseChain, validators, staking, all that good stuff, and their upcoming NFT project. Guys, if you like interviews like this, do hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you're notified every time we drop new videos and content on the channel. You can also share the video with someone who you like. And if you're feeling very kind, tap the like button and drop a comment below if you're watching the playback for the algo. It does help us out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.